Sometimes history doesn't come crashing down with bombs or tanks. Sometimes it happens quietly, in boardrooms, stock exchanges, and in the numbers that scroll across a government report. That's what's happening to Canada right now. And it's shocking, but not surprising. Let's start with something Donald Trump once said. Reporters pressed him on whether he'd use military force to expand U.S. influence in places like Panama or even Greenland. His answer? He didn't need military force when it came to Canada. He said he'd use something far more effective, economic force. Think about that for a moment. No tanks, no troops. Just tariffs, trade wars, and raw financial power. And here's the crazy part, it's working. Because the Canadian economy has just taken its sharpest dive since the pandemic. GDP shrank at an annualized pace of 1.6% in the second quarter. That's not just a dip. That's a nosedive into recession territory. And let's be honest, many of us saw this coming a mile away. Exports collapsed. Business investment froze. Steel, aluminum, cars all hit by tariffs. And at the very same time, uncertainty over Ottawa's policies made Canadian companies hold back from buying equipment, expanding factories, or hiring workers. That hesitation alone has done damage that feels eerily like the early days of 2020. Now, economists, the people who usually spin every headline into something polite and harmless, are admitting it. Canada is now the single biggest casualty of Trump's trade war. Let that sink in. The world's 10th largest economy, taken apart by a country 10 times its size, without a single shot fired. And Trump? He doesn't even sound angry about it. He almost sounds amused. He said publicly, "We have such power over Canada economically. I'd rather not use it, but if I have to, I will." That's the position Ottawa has put us in, at the mercy of Washington. Meanwhile, what is Ottawa doing? Copying Europe's regulations on big tech companies. And Trump didn't mince words. He said it won't work out for Europe, and it certainly won't work out for Canada. His answer? He cut off negotiations cold. We're not even going to talk until Canada straightens out its act. That's how far relations have sunk. But here's the kicker, the mainstream press, the ones who usually polish Ottawa's shoes, they can't cover for this anymore. Even government-funded outlets are admitting the truth. Canada's economy is sputtering. Productivity is collapsing. And wages? Falling further behind the U.S. Let me give you one stat that should make you furious. Ontario, Canada's largest province, the so-called economic engine of the country, now has a per capita GDP on par with Alabama. Yes, Alabama. One of the poorest U.S. states. That's where decades of mismanagement have landed us. And if Canadian workers had simply kept pace with American productivity over the last 6 years, every single Canadian would be making, on average, about $5,500 more per year. That's the cost of stagnation. That's the bill we're all paying for Ottawa's failed policies. But wait, it gets worse. Because while wages are stuck and productivity is sliding, youth unemployment is exploding. Banks are warning it's already at recessionary levels. Think about that. The economy is supposedly still growing, and yet young people can't find work. That's not just a bad sign, that's a flashing red light. I'll spell it out. Canada's 15 to 24-year-olds are suffering. They're walking into employment centers in droves, desperate for entry-level jobs, and being told there's nothing available. The numbers prove it. Youth unemployment has risen more than 5.5% since 2022, worse than what usually happens in an actual recession. And who pays the price? Not the well-connected elites in Ottawa. Their kids already have jobs lined up, internships handed down, and futures secured. It's ordinary Canadian families who get left behind. Meanwhile, the federal government continues to flood the job market with cheap foreign labor under the Temporary Foreign Worker Program. This program, long criticized, has become a black market of permits and paperwork where shady operators profit while Canadian workers are sidelined. It's not conspiracy, it's documented fact. Internal memos have confirmed that the system is being abused, turning permits into commodities instead of protections. And what does that mean for you? Wages suppressed. Housing costs soaring. Healthcare stretched thin. All while Ottawa looks the other way. That's what Trump means by economic force. He doesn't need to invade Canada. He doesn't need to threaten. He just needs to let Ottawa keep shooting itself in the foot while U.S. tariffs and trade pressure do the rest. The truth is painful, but clear. Canada is stumbling toward third world status. And unless leadership changes course, this slide doesn't stop here. Productivity will keep falling, wages will keep lagging, and young Canadians will keep losing hope. But here's an angle most Canadians aren't even thinking about yet. What happens if this so-called economic force doesn't just hit our GDP, but starts hollowing out our sovereignty? Think about it. When your biggest trading partner can turn your economy upside down in a matter of months, who's really in charge? Ottawa or Washington? Already we're seeing Canadian companies shifting operations south just to survive tariffs and uncertainty. Once jobs leave, they don't come back. And with our youth unemployment already at crisis levels, that brain drain could turn permanent. The brightest Canadian talent might start packing their bags, not because they want to, but because the opportunities simply aren't here anymore. And that's how a nation fades, not overnight, not with a bang, but with a slow leak. One family moving, one factory closing, one student deciding their future lies elsewhere. The scary truth is this: we don't even need to be annexed militarily or politically. If our economic independence collapses, if our workers and our youth are priced out and pushed out, we've already lost. That's the real warning hidden inside these numbers. Canada isn't just in recession. Canada is on the edge of becoming a branch plant economy of the United States. And unless leadership wakes up, we'll be left debating scraps while Washington makes the rules. So when you hear Trump say he can take Canada economically, don't laugh it off. Don't roll your eyes. Look around. Look at the numbers. Look at your paycheck. Look at your kids struggling to find work. The takeover is already happening, and Ottawa is letting it. And that's why this moment matters. Because history isn't just written in wars and treaties. It's written in recessions, productivity charts, and trade wars. Right now, Canada's story is being rewritten, and unless something changes, it's being written in Washington, not in Ottawa. If you've stayed with me this far, thank you. This is the kind of reporting you won't hear from the government-paid media. So do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next video. It costs nothing, but it helps us keep going. Together, we can shine a light on the truth.